All right. For most people outside of Miami, the only exposure they've ever had to Miami Jai Alai is the opening of the show Miami Vice. But the two guests that I have on today are going to shed some light on it. Two Miami Jai Alai or highlight legends, Benny and JJ. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Brother, tell me in a sentence, what is Jai Alai?
Well, Jai Alai is a sport. It's played very much like squash, 3 walls, and the fourth side is a screen where the audience sits and watch. And basically, the rules of the game are very similar to like squash, racquetball, handball, even tennis in some senses of words. Me and you against him and his partner, we volley back and forth till somebody loses. Score points till you win the game.
Got it. How did you guys get involved with Jai Alai?
Oh, JJ, you go first on this one.
Wow. Well, funny story is my aunt used to perform in Miami Beach. She was the original Latin bombshell, Diosa Castrello. And she became friends with old players that played at Miami Jai Alai, like Guarita. And that was one of her favorites. And Guarita and her and Bengo and all these guys used to go over to her home and make paellas on the weekends every now and then. So my dad would go to these Sunday outings that they had at her house and met the players and became friends with some of them. And they gave him a basket. So it was a big backcourt basket. So my dad, you know, the engineer that he thought he was, he took the basket and cut the glove part and made it smaller so I can use it and throw it against the wall on 179th. It was behind a Penny's, at J.C. Penney's.
No way.
In 179th in Opelika, or Carroll City.
Yeah.
And that's where I started at the age of 6.
What year was that?
That was
a long time ago.
1966.
Was there color TV yet?
No, it was black and white. So 1966, I was 6 years old. Started playing there. Then they had International Jai Alai, which was in Perrine. And that's the first Jai Alai that I went to. It was
so as a kid, they had like leagues, like, you know, amateur leagues, like you learn how to play, like T-ball?
They only had 2 amateur Jai Alai courts at that time, and that was International Jai Alai and Miami Amateur.
Miami Amateur?
Yeah, North Miami Amateur. Orbea's wasn't constructed yet at that point in time. But I think Orbea's was built in 1970, 71, 72?
I think it was around 72 or
71, 72, something like that. And there we had little tournaments for, you know, the amateurs and the kids and stuff. Orbea had a league for kids like me, Pete. We played in some of the tournaments there. And gradually played, you know, getting older, we started playing more amateur tournaments, got involved with the tournaments that were playing in Daytona. You know, we played the whole circuit and all the frontons to qualify for the U.S. amateur tournaments. And I qualified for 2 years, 75 and 76, won U.S. amateur tournaments and the championships, and played the world tournament in Pan American Games in Mexico City, which we got lucky and won. You know, interesting story, but and here we are, you know.
That is amazing. And Benny, how'd you get into it?
Well, when my parents decided to move from New York to Miami, I think it was 72, the year the Dolphins went undefeated. My dad had a cousin that played amateurs at Orbea's, and he told, you know, he would always tell him, hey, you got to check this out. You got to check this out. You know, bring the kid. I was 8 or 9 years old at the time. And so he finally talked my dad into going to this little court. It was actually perfect for learning to play Jai Alai. It was perfect. It had a 60-foot court. It had a 90-foot court. It had a 120-foot court, and then a 150-foot court. Okay. So it had 4 courts. It's in Medley, or was in Medley. The building's still there. And so my dad went with my uncle, or his cousin, and tried to play, learned to play. Took me with him. I had no interest in playing. I was playing baseball and, you know, basketball at school, and really didn't care for it much. And then I would go with him every Saturday that he would go, and then myself and 3 or 4 other kids would just run around and play tag, and we never even tried a basket on. And one day the owner's son, Fernando Orbea Jr., great friend of ours, he said, hey, let's go on the court and try to throw the ball. And so we said, all right, we went out there, and, you know, we were playing, like, you know, kids play wall ball. And
man, it's the best.
Yeah. So we were just had like fun and no instruction. Nobody said anything. And even the parents, they kind of stayed back and just let us have fun with it. Yeah. And then eventually we started going more often and picking it up. And then around when I was like 12 years old, there was the school in North Miami,
Yeah.
which was an actual academy. It had a highlight teacher. You had to be between the ages of 10 and 16 to join.
Yeah.
And my mom got together with a good friend of ours, Raymond Duran, and said, I'll drive him up 2 times a week. You drive him up 1, and then we'll rotate weeks. And we'll take him 3 times a week and see what happens. So that's how we got started at North Miami. We had a teacher named Aparicio, and he taught us the very basics of the game. And the North Miami facility was also good for learning because it had a 60-foot court, a 90-foot court, and then a 150-foot court. So it had 3 courts, but you learned on each court until you got to a certain level.
When did you get the bug? Like, I love this. I want to be, because you were both professional, right?
Yeah.
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 When did it hit you?
Well, for me, it hit, honestly, like when I turned pro. I was always doing it for fun. I liked playing because it's a hard game to learn. It's very difficult to play. I mean, JJ will tell you.
Very hard.
Because the ball goes how fast?
I mean, depending who's throwing it, but in the professional level, it goes between 140 and 160 miles per hour.
Oh my God.
Pretty consistently.
And it's hard as hell.
And it's a hard, you
I
don't
would
want to
say
get
very consistently. I will tell you a story about how fast we found out how that ball was going with a Lordwy coming out to the court.
Yeah.
One day, I was speeding on 36th Street, and a Miami Springs cop stopped me. He says, you're too young to be driving a Mercedes-Benz. It was a Mercedes-Benz that I just bought, my wife and I. And he didn't give me the ticket because he wanted to see if I was a highlight player. I showed him the baskets. I broke a basket the night before, and I said, I'm going to go and break this one in and stuff, And so he followed me to highlight, and he had his speed gun. And I said, why don't you bring your speed gun in? And he said, okay, cool. So he didn't think I was a player until I took him into the locker room, So I had to go into the front, took him all through the front. And he sits down in that booth in the front there where the camera room is, and I'm throwing the ball. And lo and behold, I see this guy banging the gun, and I'm going, what the hell's going on? So I'm thinking in my mind, he's probably not believing that this thing is going fast. And he says, man, you're throwing this ball about 160-something miles an hour. And I'm going, really? I said, wow. I said, that's pretty fast, right? So then a Lordwy comes out. And a Lordwy's a powerhouse. At that time, he was the hardest thrower in the game.
Probably in the history of the game.
In the history of the game.
Yeah.
So a Lordwy comes out, and he's starting to throw the balls. And he had a few drinks the night before, so he was already warm. He didn't have to warm up. So he goes out there, and he starts throwing these bullets. So I'm telling him, I said, hey, throw a ball to the glass, and he threw a ball to the glass, and I told him, try to hit dead center, and he hit it a little bit off center, but the guy's in the stool, and he's sitting down, and he's going like this with the gun, and he threw the ball, and the guy's going like this, and he fell back, and that was it. He got up, this guy took off like Forrest Gump, but he says, man, it says 187 miles an hour. He says, I don't know if this thing, and I just had this recalibrated last week or so, so I don't know if that's true or not, but 187 miles an hour. I believe there's players out there that can throw it a little bit faster than that or a little harder, like a guy like Lopez. I think that's a guy that should be clocked because for me, I think he's one of the hardest throwers at this point in time.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody else that can throw a reverse like that.
Well, we did a speed challenge at Dania in 2017, and the record at that time, because that's the thing is that guys throw hard all the time, but nobody's ever recording it. We don't have a speed gun there.
Goes
like in baseball, you can see when a guy throws 104, like it's recorded right there. So there was a Guinness record that was created in I think it was 79 in Newport, Rhode Island. A guy threw the ball 188 miles an hour. So this was in the Guinness Book of Records. So we were doing the speed challenge, and we were like, I was a little hesitant at first because I'm thinking, what if our guys start throwing as hard as they can? It's doing 120 or 140. Right. You don't know. So I'm like, we've been saying it's the fastest game. Yeah. I was a little nervous, but then we did a couple of tests, and everybody was throwing consistently 150, 160. A couple guys 165, 170. So we said, all right, let's do it. So we did it, and then there was this one guy, Ibon Aldazabal, and he came out and he said, he's just kidding around, but seriously kidding around. I'm going to break the record of 188. And I said, all right, cool, whatever. So we had rounds where people were eliminated, and we got down to the last, I think, 6 or 8 guys. And it was a special night. And he comes out the first time, and he throws 184. And everybody's like, ooh. And then everybody else was like 170, 175, right behind him, but not, he was throwing the hardest. He came out and he threw 186. Everybody had 5 throws.
Was this during a performance?
This was during the performance. We stopped the game.
Well, that's good because if during a performance, the adrenaline's going, the player's going to throw harder than a practice round.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was
warmed up.
The crowd is what gives you the umph.
Yeah.
To go out
We played 6 games and then we stopped to do the finals of the challenge. And so he came out, he threw 186. Everybody was like, ooh. So the other guys went. When he came up the 4th time, the whole crowd started chanting.
That's what gives you the.
And he comes out and he threw 190 miles per hour.
Wow, we broke the record.
So he broke the record. So we recorded it right away. He called the Guinness Book of Records and said, "What do we have to do?" And they said, "Send us the gun, send us the ball, send us the video, send us everything you have."
Yeah.
And they like 2 months later, they sent him a certificate for.
Wow, that
breaking
is
the world
really, really
record.
cool, man.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back in time. I mean, you talked. The cop pulled you over and was impressed. Like there was a time where highlight players were the big shit in town, right? They were like
In
Dolphin
the 80s,
players and stuff. Yeah, like I
in the
remember,
80s,
I
it
was a
pretty
kid.
big.
Yeah,
it
late
was-
70s and 80s. I remember going to the Dayland Mall, going to a mall and walking around, and my wife would be like, "Come on, what's with?" And I'm like, "Oh, there's a highlight."
Yeah,
and, hey, Benny, you remember you were in the 4 and I needed you to beat the 6. And,
I lost money on you, Benny.
Yeah, I don't remember. One time, one funny story. I'll let you because he has more stories.
No,
But that bet that we were talking about before the show, the Super 6.
Yeah.
It was a bet where the jackpot would grow. And if you got 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 6, you get a consolation.
Yeah.
So one time I go to a bank to get a car loan, and the lady, is taking my application.
Yeah.
She goes, "Oh my God, you're a highlight player?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh my God, hold on a second." She calls her husband and says, "Hey, Benny's here." And he's like, "Benny's here." And she hangs up. She goes, "He's on his way." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this guy's coming to kick my butt. What did I do?"
Hopefully he won money on me,
And the guy shows up with a nice basket with fruit and wine or whatever.
Very cool.
And I was the last game that he needed to win that bet. He got like $30,000, so it was a consolation.
Yeah,
it
but
wasn't
still,
the
it's a good
whole
payday.
jackpot. But yeah, so there's good stories, but there's
Did he
also
give you an
times.
earful?
Huh?
Did he give-
Yeah, I mean that's part. Well, that's part of it. Like even
Yeah.
still today, like the other day coming down the escalator at work, a guy came up to me. He's like, "Hey, I just want you to know that I still recognize you as legendary." And I was like, it's humbling. It's very nice. It's nice to hear, but it's like that was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like people say,
have memories, boy.
yeah,
Absolutely, man.
especially because where it was then and where it is now, that's what I think people are holding on to the memory of.
So take me
the
back
good
in
old
time.
days.
I was a kid, 70s, 80s. What was Miami Highlight like? I mean, it was
Wow.
thousands of people were going, millions of dollars were being spent.
In the
What was it like to be there?
In the 70s, that place was packed. Miami was packed from the 70s to the late 80s, correct?
Yeah.
So we had anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 people
Yeah, at
going
least.
to that building.
5 to 7
Yeah.
a night.
Yeah.
And
I remember I
yeesh.
debuted on a Thursday night,
Yeah.
and they would put the attendance in the handle every night.
Yeah.
The night that I debuted, there was 4,200 people in the audience
Jeez.
on a Thursday night.
On a Thursday night.
And Friday and Saturday was like, if you didn't buy tickets on Monday or Tuesday for
You couldn't
Friday
get
and
in.
Saturday,
Really?
you're not getting in.
Wow.
Yeah, it was packed back in the days. You'd walk into that court and see just a cloud of smoke
Yeah.
because they would,
could smoke cigarettes back then.
And cigars, yeah.
Oh,
And
cigars.
the cigar. You smell cigar smoke.
Yeah.
It overpowers the cigarette smoke. And you'd walk out there and you couldn't even hear yourself think sometimes because the people were yelling so loud. But that's what gave you the adrenaline,
Yeah.
the want to win, to get out there and kick butt,
Yeah.
And you have friends out there that you ended up losing your friends because they'd be cursing at you. One minute,
Yep.
they're your friend. Hey, JJ,
Yeah.
boom, and the next, and then I say, damn, that's my friend. I think he's cursing at me. That mother flower, It's like, but I lost some friends out there, and you see them out in the bars later or whatever, and hey, it was just
like
mad
nothing
at the
happened.
moment.
Like nothing happened.
Like
You
nothing
just
happened.
cursed my mom a few minutes ago, and you want me to buy you a drink now?
Yeah.
Is that how
Yeah.
this works?
Yeah, there was one guy, Raul. I don't know if he goes
I'm
to
sure.
Highlight Live.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I know.
This
who
guy
he
used to
is.
curse at me, and he said some stuff one day. And I'm like, what? Ooh, okay, I'll remember that. So I go to I forgot Mike's Lounge, I think it was, or whatever, Mike's Bar or whatever.
Mike's
Yeah,
and
Mike's
Venetian?
Lounge on
Yeah,
36th
So I
Street.
go in
okay,
there,
yeah.
and I go into the bathroom, and who do I see?
Him.
Him holding his Johnson. So I'm looking at him and saying, oh, I said, hey, remember me? He goes, oh, hey, JJ, my buddy, you know? Oh, so now I'm your buddy. I said, the next time I'm going to rap you whenever you say something like that about my mother.
That happens, like when you see them out there, they're really like the fence that, separates them from you. Guy. They're super tough. It happened to me one time at Dayland Mall. Again, I was walking. A guy was there. He's trying on his shoes, and I walk by and I do a double take, and he looks up and he goes, "Oh God, it's Benny."
Yeah,
and I'm like, "Hey, bro, what's up?"
And the first thing they say to you is, "I didn't know you were so big."
No, hey man, I get hot. I was betting. It's like, I don't care, you know why? And I'll tell you why. And it happens in all the sports,
of course.
They scream at the wrong time. You just messed up. You just threw the ball out of bounds. You just dropped an easy ball with game point. And that's when they scream. So you're already hot. Like, I don't care what's happening over there. I'm here. I got to beat this guy to feed my family. And that's what, and then all of a sudden, it's like.
I got you tripping in my ear.
You think like I did it on purpose? Like, so it's always bad timing for them to scream at you. They never scream at the right time. I mean, but.
And some of them are really good at it because they try to get under your skin.
Yeah.
Some players they actually did.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't really pay any mind to them really.
I
heard everything.
I used to pretend that I was playing in a fish tank.
Yeah.
And so sound never came through. And I was probably one of the most tranquilo of the players. Some players couldn't take it. Some players would explode. We get fines for screaming at the crowd. And, it overpowers the good, overpowers the bad because there's 7,000 people. 5 or 6 are screaming for you.
Exactly.
And there's 3 or 4 or maybe 40 guys that are screaming against you. So it's not really that bad, but some people have what I call rabbit ears. And as soon as they hear their name, they're like, they're screaming at me.
And they're looking for, who is it?
It's the mental part of the
But I will say this about it, since we're going through time and we're at the mid 80s. In the late 70s and early 80s, it was probably the funnest and most social time for Jai Alai. After that, things started to taper off. Other things started to come in, simulcasting, poker, the business changed.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about the strike in '88.
Yeah.
A lot of things happened, the Marlins, the Heat, the Florida Lottery.
Competition.
All the stuff started coming in that started making the business go down. And then it became more of a job for a lot of the older guys. It's like, okay, I'm going to go play. And we still are competitive and we still want to play and we still want to make money. But that 70s and 80s shine had just
fizzed out.
So peak highlight, I mean, what were players making?
I guess the best players, there's probably 1 or 2 exceptions, but the best players were making between 80 and 100,000.
Okay.
And then like the new guys would probably be making about 40 to 50,000.
And this is 70s, 80s. This
is in 70s or 80s.
So they're making a living.
I mean, am I wrong?
Money.
Decent money.
Am I wrong?
I don't know about the $100,000. I mean, I really don't know about that.
Well,
I know that some players like Joey and Assis.
Joey and Joey.
Yeah, Joey. I think Joey was the
Joey's
highest
the only
paid
one.
at that time, and I don't know if he was getting $4 or $5 a month salary.
Yeah, $5 grand.
I don't know if he was getting I don't know if it was $100,000. I know he was making good money though.
Yeah. Well, you figure if he's making $5 grand, he's making $60 grand in salary alone, and then he's probably making
money and
the prize money and championship. So he's breaking 100, but. There was a time where the business, could afford that.
Yeah.
I mean, the betting in-house was millions of dollars. There was no, no competition with the lottery, no internet, things like that. So, they were making a lot of money early on. And I don't think that they were like really looking towards the future. They thought that the golden goose was going to live forever. And then stuff started happening.
Okay, so you would be an employee of Jai Alai? Is that how it worked? And how did the strike? Were you guys a union? Like what was the?
No, there was. As a matter of fact, that's a good question because we were employees, but we were more like independent contractors.
Sure.
We were under a contract and we were playing for prizes. And then for many years, the Jai Alai players wanted to organize and become a union. It started in 1968. A group of guys said we want to be a union, and then the management was against it. Mm-hmm. So that was different because there was never a picket line in the 60s. That strike ended by none of them getting contracts. So a group of players in the 68 didn't get a contract. They brought in all new players in 69. Fresh young kids that they were good. Yeah. I mean, out of that group, a lot of really great players from the 70s came out. So a group was blackballed, never played again until like maybe the late 70s. And then, 20 years later, on the 20th anniversary of that first strike,
Yeah.
the sons of one of the organizers in '68
Yeah.
were now professional highlight players and were now playing, and they were kind of carrying the torch for the father's efforts back in '68.
Yeah.
And they just wanted to organize. Really, the strike was all about just organizing and becoming a union.
Yeah.
The ownership up till today will argue that they had every right to be against that and had every right to go against that. So the players, I think, when the strike happened, thought that, we'll go out, we'll be out for 2 or 3 weeks, we'll work things out, we'll come back. And it just wasn't like that.
It's the longest sports strike of all time, right?
Yeah.
It lasted 3.5 years.
They went about it the wrong way, though. They just went out on strike. They didn't even try to negotiate. And that's what happened at the beginning of this strike. I don't know if you know that, but
I know that.
They were supposed to have sat down with management and negotiate with them, but they didn't. They just went on strike, and that struck.
It was
really
from the moment of talking about it to the moment of doing it. It was kind of quick. There's people that, again, you talk to 10 people, you're going to get 10 sides. So
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that most people will say that they could have done it through the legal system.
Yeah.
And it would have been less than 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, some players never played after the strike. Like they went out in their mid-30s, and when the strike ended, like they weren't on the list to come back. And everybody sacrificed. The whole sport ended up losing in the sense where, some people will say, no, we won, and some people will say, no, we won, but nobody really won.
Nobody won.
There was no
the sport got hurt. Yeah.
It was, again, the timing was really bad because that was 1988. Where the lottery came in, where the Miami Heat came in.
2%
the
from
Hurricanes were at their
lottery.
peak.
There was a lot of things that were shifting just in the landscape.
In the landscape
of
Miami,
not just at Highlight.
Yeah.
So that was right when the Eastern Airlines went on strike.
That's right.
There was just like a whirlwind of things that were happening. And the players, thought this is going to last a couple of weeks, and it just went on really long. And then the year after the strike ended and everything normalized, but everybody came back. Everybody was back to play. And then simulcasting came out, which simulcasting means, I'm playing highlight. I'm going to send my signal out, and anybody that wants to take it can bet on it. Right. So now the business in-house takes a hit.
Correct.
Because people are betting in other convenient places. If you live in Pompano or you live in West Palm Beach, you don't need to drive down anymore. You just go to your local horse or dog track and bet. So that was a hit. And then years after that, poker came out. And that's when the legalities started to change, because they had to go and lobby for poker. And the players union, which at that point was established, went up to the lobbying session and said, okay, if they have to play poker, they can't get rid of highlight. They have to actually play X amount of games to have a poker license. And the state agreed. So the union served the purpose, as the years went on. But initially they went out because the players, everybody wanted more, better benefits. Better pay,
I get it.
Better, insurance, 401k, SESTA allowance, just kind of things like that. Again, many different opinions of how it all.
What can you still bet on highlight?
Yes,
you can. What is the betting like? I mean, what on a given night? What is
the handle?
About? Yeah.
I don't know,
because you got global now. I mean,
you can
be in
that.
Saudi Arabia.
Now it's changed a little bit. Again, we could go through the whole gamut of how things changed, because everything really changed. In '98 again. I'll just run the history today,
of course,
if you don't mind. I'll try to condense it for you. In '98, poker came in. You started seeing more people going to play poker than watching highlight. I mean, they were still getting crowds of maybe 1,500, 2,000 people.
Right.
And so the business was still moving. In the early 2000s, the concept of bringing in slot machines came. So now everything changed. The state was against it totally. The Indians were totally against it. It wasn't easy to do, but eventually they were able to get it. So when that happened, a lot of things changed in the business, because the owners that had owned from the 70s and 80s were people from Vegas were coming in and offering them hundreds of millions of dollars for the property, because it was going to be lucrative in the long run. So a lot of the highlights either closed or they went to shorter seasons, or in Miami-Dade and Broward were sold to people from Las Vegas.
companies.
So those people are not in love with Jai Alai.
Yeah.
Those people are not married to Jai Alai.
Right.
The owners previously, like they went through all the struggles, including the 80s and 90s.
And they're probably fans.
And
Yes.
and the business was dwindling very fast.
Yeah.
You know, so it was an opportunity for the owners at that time to just get out and just cash their check and go.
Yeah.
Dania Jai Alai, which is where I work.
Yeah.
In 2006, it was sold to Boyd Gaming from Las Vegas for $152 million. And just a few years before that, he was going to board it up and close it.
Isn't that crazy?
He made a decision to just hang on for a year or two and see what happens. And in the end, he got a check for $152 million. So that's where everything started to change, because now you have casino operators that come into the property. It's not a Jai Alai anymore. Now it's a casino, and they look at the business of Jai Alai, and it's just not. It's a loss leader for them.
Yeah.
It's like, why do we have to have this? And they
Yeah.
go, oh, because it's in the statute. The
state.
The state says you have to play, if you have a casino, 150 performances a year, which was draining for the companies.
How long
because
is
of
that
the
statute for? Do you have any-
well, they eliminated in 2021, which is another
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 problem.
new beginning.
Yeah.
A new beginning at that point. But
So thinking about new beginnings, how do you look? I think I said it earlier, which was highlight is important. I don't like seeing sports go extinct, but it's definitely important to this community. It's part of the fabric of Miami. Like I said it as a kind of a joke, but in the opening of the Miami Vice scene, our favorite show out of here, you see the highlight, and you're like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I've been to a highlight match, and I was like, this is actually really interesting, but just people don't know about it. I think it's an education project. Highlight today. How do we turn this thing around? How do we save highlight?
I think if you build it, they will come.
Okay.
You know, I think amateur courts would be a beginning.
I agree with you.
You know, I had an idea of building a highlight racket fitness club. And it was an idea I had a while back ago, and I just don't have the money for that. But I thought, you know, building a nice gym facility, showers, pool, all that, and have some racket courts and highlight courts, a couple of highlight courts, and start off with something like that and see what happens, you know. The people don't know anything about it, but if you build it and you start offering them, you know, an opportunity to go out and play, I think it might happen. I think, you know, more people say, hey, this game is pretty cool. And then we can start having little tournaments.
Yeah.
And then maybe have the media out there help us out.
Will highlight have their pickleball moment?
I'm hoping so. Well, you know, I'll tell you, and
it's possible.
To add to what he
it's
just said, every single kid that I have ever played with had never stopped playing.
Really?
In the 70s, when we went to the highlight school and a kid that never had been there walked through that door, 5 years later, that kid was playing professional. It's something that when you play, you know, you play golf?
I've played, but a little bit, yeah. Right.
Okay. So it's kind of like golf, but not the same, but the concept of learning it. Like you go out there with a golf club and you shank one, you roll one, you can't hit one, and you're just like this, and you watch it on TV and you're like, this is so slow and boring, I hate it. And then one day you get a 7-iron and you hit it 150 or 160 yards right down the pipe, and you're like, oh, okay.
I get it now.
That's
Now
the
I get the
shot
fever.
that makes you go back.
And then now I understand it. And highlight's very similar. It's like, you know, you hit the wall and you catch one, and then you hit the wall and you're like, oh, wow. And then you learn how to throw with and then you watch the pros and you're like, man, they make it look so easy. I want to do it like that. It's like, you know, when you see a pro golfer that hits a ball, you know, 300 yards, it's like, wow, why can't I do that? You can do that.
Right.
You just got to practice.
You got to practice. It's an education. It's a coaching, a development.
If the kids see it, they're going to love it. I'll tell you a quick story. I went to Puerto Rico in 1993, I think it was, and I had an uncle who was a musician in Puerto Rico, very famous over there, died a few years ago. Anyway, he says, look, you know, the name of his album or his record company is called Cesta Records.
That's
cool. It has a highlight basket with the balls going around. So he loved highlights since the 60s. You know, he used to go and watch Orbea and all these guys play. But anyway, he says, look, I'm going to set up a meeting with you and the sportscaster here of Puerto Rico, and we're going to introduce this to the governor and see, you know. They didn't have gambling there at that time.
Okay.
So this was a shot. So I took 4 highlight baskets and I went to Roberto Clemente Stadium, and they had these squash courts and racquetball courts there. So my uncle says, hey, you think you'll play that? I said, yeah, I'll go out there with a rubber ball. And I took a rubber ball with a super fast basket, you know, and I started throwing the ball, and I'm throwing, and I'm getting hot. I'm already sweating, and I'm throwing the shit out of the ball. And these kids are having a tennis class, and I think there's like 16 kids over there. And I hear the teacher saying, venga para acá, you know, and they all came to watch me throw. So one of the kids says, hey, you know, puedo probar eso? And I said, sure. So I tied up the baskets for these 4 kids, and I'm teaching them how to throw the ball. Within about 20, 30 minutes, the kids are trying, they're going, they have a general idea from watching what I was doing, and they're throwing the ball against the wall. And, you know, we thought we had a hit here. So they're filming this, and this guy's asking me questions about highlight, this and that. And he asked me, he says, oh, is it a dangerous game? I said, yeah, it's dangerous like, you know, boxing and any other sport.
Baseball, yeah.
It's the fastest, most dangerous ball game in the world. And I don't know if that's what killed it, but, you know, I thought that killed it. And he says, no, that it didn't have nothing to do with it. He says they went with the casinos instead because it was, you know, more money for them.
Because the infrastructure, can you play or a quasi game off of a racquetball court or whatnot? Because it strikes me that one of your problems is you need land to build the courts. Can you play off of like a makeshift game, call it, like a couple kids?
It depends on what kind of ball you're going to use,
okay,
and what you're looking for. Because if you can use rubber balls on those courts, yes. On some racquetball courts, I believe. I don't know if that rubber ball will break that wall, but I've seen these guys playing with tennis balls. An amateur highlight player from years ago.
Yeah,
but I don't know if that ball will break the wall, but it depends on what kind of wall, because you can't use a cement wall, because that highlight ball will break the cement
wall. Got it.
Yeah.
You can't. Well, the answer to the question is yes, but you can't use the actual highlight ball that is played.
Because it'll break the wall.
It'll break the wall. Yeah. But
now highlights always had colorful characters, right? From 70s, 80s, from, you know, the shady people, Miami Cocaine Cowboys and stuff like that. You guys were probably exposed to some of it. Talk to me about those days and crazy stories of highlight.
There are many.
Well,
half those people are dead, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Yes. Well, I got to, it was really funny. I was kind of blinded to certain things. I think I was around 19 years old. A friend of mine, Mike Campos, he was in the rackets back in the days, and I think he's still around. I hope you're doing well, Mike. Anyway, he invited me to the mutiny.
Yeah.
So I go to the mutiny, and I walk into the mutiny with him, and I end up getting lost, you know. So I'm looking for him and all this, and I see this woman sitting down, and she's got a suit and a hat on, and I didn't know who she was, and she's going like this, come over here, you know. You know, I'm like, okay. And so as I'm walking, you know, to go up to her, I'm saying, hey, she goes, yeah, come over here. So I'm walking up, and these 2 guys are there, and they're saying, go ahead, you know, pasa, you know. So I go up and I said, yes. I said, what can I do? And I said, my name's JJ. You know, I introduced myself to her, and she goes, hi, my name's Griselda. And I said, oh, nice to meet you. And she goes, would you like to have some champagne with me? You know, and I said, I would love to, but I think my girlfriend would be jealous if she saw me sitting down with such a pretty, elegant woman like you. You know, I mean, the woman looked like a potato with legs.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, you know, but she was very nice to me, you know, and I said, you know, okay, thank you very much. You know, I'm going to go meet my friend and my girlfriend. I'm looking for my girlfriend. I don't want her to get jealous. You know, so she goes, okay. So I got up and I walked away. And as soon as I walk away, my friend comes up to me and he hits me in the arm really hard, where it hurt for a whole week. And I was like, damn, man. And I asked him, what the hell you do that for? And he says, don't talk to that woman. Don't ever go over there. And I go, why? He says, that's the Black Widow. Yeah. I still didn't know what he meant.
Yeah.
Later on, I find out that there was a highlight player that played in Daytona who had retired, started making a shitload of money.
Right.
His name was Nestor Garcia. Nestor Garcia had, I guess he'd done some business with one of her sons and didn't pay on time, or said, no, I'm not going to pay, you know?
Yeah.
So they send Rivi, George Rivera, and some other guy, and they assassinated him in front of their father's drugstore. Right next to, it was on Kendall Drive. They assassinated.
Mall?
No.
Yeah.
The father
I've seen that movie.
He had a drugstore there, and they assassinated him right there. But right next door is the police station.
Right. No regard to authority.
They didn't catch him, but they and that was it, you know. So Rivi uses a silencer and the other guy uses a gun. Bye-bye. He says, what the hell you do that for, buddy? And funny story is that I got to meet Rivi later on because I got jammed up with something that, the system failed me. But I got to meet him in a prison in the state of Florida, northern Florida, a place called Taylor CI. He called it Hell on Earth. I get off the bus to go there, and he gets off the bus from another place because they transfer him from prison to prison because he's shanking or killing or something's happening, and they want to move him,
Wow.
So he's a tall guy, too. He's a little bit shorter than Benny, about an inch shorter than Benny, but big guy.
Yeah.
And I see this guy, and I go, Rivi? And he looks at me, hey, Pon, he comes up to me.
He remembered
like he knew me and stuff, And I told him who I was. I said, yeah, my name's JJ. I used to play Highlight in Miami. He said, yeah, we went to Highlight a couple times, man, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you killed a friend of mine. And it was like dead silence. And I go, oh, shit, what did I just say? So, my hairs are standing thinking about it. But, he was really the nicest guy in there.
Really?
And he advised me of what to do and keep away from this and that. He says, you're in the worst place. I don't know why they sent you here for such a minimal charge that you got charged with.
Right.
So,
Coach Ribby.
I was about to say, yeah. Watch out for you.
And he says, the first thing I'm looking for is a shank. So he's looking at the door hinge, and he says, I want to see if I can get that shank, because he had a beef with some guy on the bus. And when I saw, he says, hey, I have a beef with that guy. I'm going to get him later. When I saw the guy, I said, you sure you want to tangle with that guy? He was a big monster.
Yeah.
He was really big black man. And I said, oh my God, I'm going to have a tough time in here. But yeah, it was pretty rough there. I was there for, I think, 90 days. I sent a letter as soon as I found out that I was with a bunch of lifers. 70-something% were lifers. And as you know, Rivi's in for life. He's never getting out. So I sent a letter to Diane D. Hart. Never forget this. House of Representatives for Ron DeSantis. And she got me out of there.
No way.
90 days and brought me down to Miami. I was down looking at Miccosukee every morning. I wake up and see the sign there saying, I'm going to be there one day having a steak and really, But yeah, that was crazy back then. Those were crazy times.
It's crazy that full circle, Rivi, you probably hadn't seen him in 30 years, 40 years, And
I didn't even remember him. I met him, but I don't even remember because he had a mountain of hair. And I don't know if it was him or not, but he says he met me before. So it could have been at the Mutiny or something like that. I might have been half.
Yeah. And was the Mutiny really that crazy?
The Mutiny was Smuggler's Cove back then.
Really?
There was cocaine on tables and stuff.
Like you would just walk in.
Guys were selling there. You had guys like, what is this gentleman's name? My God. Oh, I can't.
Willie Falcone and
Falcone.
And Sal. Yeah.
I went out with Falcone a few times. Didn't know who the hell he was. Invited me to 36 West. We got hammered. We drank. We went to a bunch of bars and stuff. I didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't know
this guy brought in 2-3 tons of cocaine to the United States. I didn't know who he was. I was like this.
Yeah.
But I learned real quick, fast. Afterwards, I found out. But yeah, Willie Falcone, and I got to meet him as well.
And did they love you because you were a highlight guy?
They treated us really different. Yeah, they liked us.
Yeah, they liked the sports guys.
Everybody wanted to be a highlight player's friend. Back in the day,
Yeah.
Especially a lot of those guys trying to clean money, a lot of anybody they figured if I can brush up against a highlight player, I'm something special. But we're just normal people like anybody else, Very nice. We'd meet you in the bar. Oh, fine. Hi, how you doing? JJ, nice to meet you. Oh, I won money on you. Oh, great to hear, And oh, I lost money. Oh, so sorry. Maybe better luck next time, whatever, But we got to meet a bunch of characters throughout the years.
World highlight, the assassination of Wheeler. Yeah. What do people in the community say happened to him? Was it Whitey Bulger? What was the story there?
Well, funny thing is
he would know more than I because
you're a little younger.
I was 17 years old when it happened. I had just turned pro. I'm
19 years old.
Out of that,
I'm playing in Hartford Highlight.
Okay,
and this guy invites me to a place to go as a joke. He's he knows I love women, right?
Yeah.
So, as a joke, he invites me to this place. It's called the Banana Boat.
Okay.
So
right away, No,
I'm like this.
Yeah.
So when we walk in there and I see all these guys, I said, bro, what the hell? I said, these are all guys in there. I said, there's no women here.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, it was a gay joint. I said, what the hell are you doing? He said, he just wanted to see my turn completely white.
Yeah.
I don't know whether to shit or go blind.
Yeah.
And so I said, John, let's get out of here, John. So I don't want to be here. And the owner had come out and he introduced me to a gentleman there, had a tight jacket on, and he says, "I'd like you to meet a friend of mine. This is James Bulger." And I didn't know who he was.
Sure.
So James Bulger, 1979, I met Whitey Bulger, and I didn't know who this guy was until I later heard that he assassinated Roger Wheeler, who had the biggest ideas for highlight.
Right.
He was the one that wanted to put it in Arizona. He was telling me, or Arizona or Texas, I don't know if he was the one, but he told me one of these two highlights is when I open up this highlight, I'd like you to go over there and start helping and teaching kids.
Yeah.
Because we had a Wednesday night or Wednesday matinee, or actually a Wednesday class for kids, and they had players like me and I think another player would come, and they'd give us, they'd pay us our lunch and or dinner, whatever. And he says, just go and do a little class for the kids, which we did, for a little while. It was pretty cool. But he had some great ideas for the game. And I think if this man wasn't assassinated, highlight would probably be in a different place right now. I truly believe that. Because at that time, he owned 5 highlights. He owned Miami Jai Alai, Fort Pierce, Ocala, Tampa, and Hartford, Connecticut. So he wanted to get another Fronton.
Yeah.
But there were some issues there where he couldn't get it up and running as fast, and then they assassinated him.
And what was the motive for assassinating him?
Well, it was said that they were being extorted by Whitey Bulger.
Yeah, right.
For a certain amount of money. I think it was $10,000 a week back in the day. And people are saying that H. Paul Rico was involved with this. So I don't know if that's true.
He was an FBI agent.
Yeah, he was
He was
in charge of organized crime in Boston. So I guess they, rubbed elbows back in the day, and him being the vice president vice president of World Highlight at that time, they're saying that they offered to buy World Highlight from Roger Wheeler, and he turned them down. So I guess that was his biggest mistake, and then they had him assassinated. So
years after all this happened, after I retired, I got friendly with the Berenson. The son.
Richard Berenson.
Richard Berenson.
Okay.
His father was the one that brought highlight. His grandfather started the gambling. And so it's a highlight family.
Mm-hmm.
They owned World Highlight. Okay. And then just to get to the end of it, his father, Buddy, loved highlight. Like it was his life.
Yes.
And these people started coming in. The Boston Bank came in and bought the company and kind of pushed him aside. And this is told to me by the son, by Richard. And he said that he was miserable because he was out. They put him in a little office downtown. He couldn't even go to the Fronton. Like they really pushed him out. He was like a chairman of the board or something, but he wasn't involved in the business, which is what he loved. So Roger Wheeler calls him up and he says, "Hey, I got some problems in Hartford Highlight. I need to see some of the past numbers that you have." So he helped him out with that. And Roger Wheeler found out that somebody was skimming from them. Right. So this is the part that I always like to get out. Yeah. It had nothing to do with the game of highlight.
Of course.
It wasn't like game fixing. The mafia didn't come in. The mob didn't come in and try to manipulate the game. It was a cash business as far as like ticket sales and parking.
Right. Concessions.
And concessions. So somebody from the Winter Hill gang was infiltrated, taking money from the cash. Yeah. And Roger Wheeler found out through the numbers from past where Buddy gave him and the numbers that he was seeing currently.
That sounds about right.
So he calls Buddy back and he says, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna sell you Hartford Highlight. I'm gonna keep the majority of it, and you're gonna run it for me, and we're gonna get rich off of it. You're gonna just take over. I'm gonna step aside and let you do your thing." Yeah. And so he did. They changed the name. It was no longer World Highlight, which was the other Frontons. It was called Berenson's Highlight. And then they found out that, in the whole transition, they found out that Roger Wheeler found out that they were skimming, and that's when they offed him. Mm-hmm. And then his vice president or somebody from the company, Callahan was also assassinated.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, they found him in the trunk at Miami Airport.
That was the story that I got from Benny, and actually, I mean not Benny, Richard Berenson. he actually was part of a documentary where he actually told this story.
Wow.
And I was there while they were filming it, and then we kind of picked up the conversation when the cameras turned off.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Interesting,
kid-
man. What a
he
history.
He played with us at on Sundays at Miami Jai Alai, and Epifanio was our teacher back then, and Richard Berenson would play.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the ability. Otherwise, I think he might have tried to turn pro, but he didn't have the ability.
Really.
And he ended up working for his father. A nice kid, nice guy.
Highlight today. How do we resurrect this? It's still live. There are fans. I just recently went, had a great time. Talk to me in the next couple of years. How do we turn this thing around?
Did I tell you about the unicorn that I want for Christmas?
We all want a unicorn for Christmas.
I want a unicorn for Christmas. Anyway, so
all right, what does that unicorn look like?
So, I mean, again, I have to go backwards to get to where I am
let's
now. I retired in 2005, and in 2005, I started working. I got a job at a bank, and I started networking and meeting people. And I met a guy that was not a psychiatrist, but he was in the medical field, and he saw me and he said, "Hey, you look a little depressed. What's the matter?" And I said, I just retired. I had a long career, 24 years, and I just stopped playing. And I miss it. I miss it.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Well, can we talk a little bit about it?" And we had a couple of meetings, and real nice guy. And he said, "You know what I think you should do is you should start a nonprofit and you should teach kids how to play."
Yeah.
And so I said, "All right, that's a great idea." And so he was kind of a mentor to me for a little while, and gave me some great ideas, connected me with some really intelligent people that were going to try to push it along. A couple years before that, when we were lobbying for slot machines, helping the company, the highlight players were helping the company try to lobby to get slot machines in. I met a lot of mayors and commissioners and also state representatives.
Yeah.
So I reached out to some of them and I just said, "Hey, look, I'm trying to do this grassroots project and I want to teach kids how to play." And they donated some money. And at first I got the 501c3 designation, and then they started donating money and I started growing. I started doing some field trips. I would bring kids to Miami Jai Alai and show them how to throw the ball, all with tennis balls and plastic cestas. But and then it started like ramping up. And I went into dozens of offices. I met with every mayor, city of Hialeah, Hialeah Gardens, Sweetwater, right here in Doral.
Yeah.
Doral was actually the closest I got to getting a court built at the park that they just finished developing down the street.
Yeah.
So anyway, 3 years go by, got a little traction, but not enough. And then I got hired at Dania Jai Alai to become, they called me the player development manager. So I came in and I started doing clinics with kids on Sundays, started growing. But as time went by, that started to fade a little because they wanted to use me more on the professional side. So I was scouting and recruiting players to play on the professional roster at Dania. So fast forward, right around that time, 2009, I came up with the concept of Major League Jai Alai.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm not going to say it was far-fetched at the time, and even still today, it's what I think needs to happen for the sport to grow again in the United States. And it was basically saying, the sport has been under the umbrella of gambling its whole history here in Miami since the very beginning. So the gambling on Jai Alai is the blessing and the curse, because the gambling is what has kept it alive to date.
Right.
And that's why it's dead.
But at the same time, it takes the focus away from the game, the players, the competition.
Sure.
And so I came up with the concept in 2009, 10 of Major League Jai Alai. It was basically a 2 or 3 page document that I put together of approaching people, obviously rich people with money. I have money. I'm a Jai Alai player. I'm a retired Jai Alai player. I'm poor. But anyways, and then just kind of targeting at that time, I was saying like a 3-sport city, like Philadelphia, like Chicago, like New York, that they have a basketball, a hockey, a football, a baseball. It's a sports town. Like the Yankee fans, they'll highlight, bring me the team. I want to, and they'll support it. So that was the concept at that time. But the cost of real estate, the cost of building these facilities, because they don't exist. You have to build the infrastructure, the infrastructure. So the document was passed out to a few people, then it sat dormant for many years. And, I really was entertained with what I do now, which is working at Dania with the professionals and the games. And, I've learned to accept what I have. But, Major League Jai Alai is something that is a team concept. It's, you can do it in one facility, but if you have 3 or 4 facilities, better. Each city has a team that they grassroots, and feeder systems. It's very complex, but at the same time, it's simple. It's what every other sport has. You can play baseball, basketball, football, lacrosse, pickleball, tennis, anywhere in Miami, anywhere in Fort Lauderdale, anywhere in West Palm Beach, anywhere in Georgia, anywhere in New York. So it's not different than the infrastructure that all other sports have. Yeah. It's just at zero at the moment. Right. So somebody has to adopt it and say, I love the idea. We're going to make it happen. Yeah. And it has to start to develop. And it is a grassroots in the sense of, right now I depend on a lot of players from Spain and France. The reason being because they have an excellent infrastructure there. Yeah. When you're 5 years old, you're throwing the ball already. When you're 10 years old, you're competing in your age group. Yeah. And when you're 19 years old, you're ready to come to Florida and play for me. So
between Spain and France, how many highlight courts are there?
It's like basketball courts here.
I mean,
it's like basketball courts.
Like how many courts are here in the U.S.?
Well, there's
a dozen?
Not even. There's probably. Well, here's the other thing too is that where the courts exist, it's a business right now that, like, even for me at Dania, like I approached Dania with the concept of Major League Highlight. Of course. Like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do a 3-month season. It'll be a pilot. I got people that are going to help me pay for it. It's not going to cost you anything. But everybody that owns a highlight court is so wrapped up in what they already do that they almost don't see. They don't see.
They love the slot machines. It's a little easier.
And they don't see the vision. They don't see the vision, they're like, listen, man, I've been at Highlight for 10 years already. I've owned this place for 10 years. Yeah. And I haven't made a dime with Highlight since it's been here. So what makes you think that you could come in and all of a sudden make this work? Yeah. And, again, there's a lot to it. It's not just like, oh, well, I'm going to do the same thing you're doing and I'm going to start making money. No, I'm going to do the total opposite of what you're doing and I'm going to make money. And so it's just kind of like a thing where it's gotten to the point where I still believe in it, but I need to be around people that we own the facility, we own the operations, we do it our way, and in the future we'll reap the benefits of it.
And they love the sport. You need a rich Saudi uncle is what you need. You need like UFC.
You know what I call him? What? I call him the Godfather.
The Godfather.
I need the Godfather.
Yeah, you need your UFC moment. The Fertitta brothers come in, they buy it, and look, you could be Dana White right
funny.
here.
I was looking,
Benny White
from the Bronx.
From the Bronx.
My daughter's married to a singer, Usher.
Okay.
And I went to the last concert over here. It was on a Thursday. And the funny thing is I was in the tunnel waiting for Usher to come out of his dressing room after the concert because we were going to have a few drinks together and sit down, the after party. And Jeff Bezos is there.
Okay.
So I got to meet Jeff Bezos. I got a picture with him. Got to meet him and his girlfriend. Yeah. Jacked up girl. Well, she's in great condition. God bless her. And I started talking to him about Highlight. I told him, I said, listen, I worked for Trump back in 2006, I understand you're going to be having a meeting. I said, hopefully everything goes. He says, yes, I'm going to meet Trump. He's a great guy. I said, great. I says, how about that Amazon strike? We started talking about that. Then I told him about Highlight. I said, I used to play Highlight. I said, boy, we can use a man like you to help this game. He says, well, maybe we can talk about it, And in that, we got separated because Usher came out and then it was kind of like pandemonium. And I didn't get to speak to him for the rest of the night because he was gone.
Sure.
But, it's somebody, I think it's somebody that has deep pockets, that's interested in helping us to build what we need in order to get to where we want to go.
And to his point, money's important in anything you do.
Of course.
But influence is just as important.
Yeah.
And so I think we need somebody to buy into it.
Yeah.
And say, years ago, I mean, again, I've been at this for many years I'm probably, I don't want to say pessimistic, but I've been beat down so much trying to move an inch forward that I'm just like, I'm skeptical. Like I've already said, I'm not going to celebrate till afterwards. I've been banging away at this for 10, 15 years. And if it happens, great. And if it doesn't, I'm 5 years away from retirement. I just hand it over to the next generation and we just see where it goes. But I think that somebody with influence, and again, what I was going to say is that years ago, I just started shooting emails. I sent one to Tiger Woods. I sent one to Michael Jordan. You just need somebody to go, hey, Shaq. Hey, you know what? This is worth getting behind.
Exactly. It's worth saving, man.
It's worth saving. And then you get behind it and then you move an inch, and then you move 5 inches, and next thing you know, it's something. Right now, it's something, but it's not at its full potential.
But even like with the gambling apps, like if I'm on FanDuel or DraftKings, can I gamble on Highlight?
Not on the
At this
parimutuel.
point in time, no.
You can't bet on parimutuel on the apps. I didn't know
that. But
Okay.
there is a way that you could bet on a different format.
Okay.
Magic City has created this format that they're playing.
Yeah.
And, I'm a very neutral. My son plays at Magic City.
Okay.
So I'm very neutral about what they have and what I have and what they do and what we do. But to their credit, they have built this format that they play that is on, FanDuel and DraftKings, and they're growing that model. There's possibility of collaboration someday.
Yeah.
There's possibility of building your own and taking that same avenue. They've created the blueprint.
Yeah.
So, the possibilities are there and they are actually endless. But at the same time, there's differences in what they're doing and what we're doing.
Yeah.
And some people still are hanging on to the tradition of the game.
Yeah.
And, again, I'm very flexible. I just want to see the sport succeed. But at the same time, for example, if the unicorn showed up and said, well, let's go build the first place.
Yeah.
I don't have to have a full length court. I don't have to have, all the traditional things that we have now. We can make the court shorter.
Yeah.
We could modify the ball a little bit.
Right.
We still have to have a granite front wall because that is what gives the best result.
Okay.
So they play on a different type court with a different type ball. Not criticizing it. I just think that there could be a hybrid between us and them, and that's negotiable. In my opinion, but I think it has to be leaning more towards what used to be in the sense of the game than what has been created new.
And then I saw let's call it Udonis Haslam and even Pip or somebody buying teams. Like, what is that? I don't even know.
That's part of their concept. Their concept is basically what I was saying of doing for Major League Highlight.
Yeah.
That I didn't invent it. You look at U.S. soccer, U.S.
Of course.
Anything, any sport. So it's basically they have 6 teams, and these teams play a season.
Okay.
With a schedule where you play each team a couple times, they get points, they get ranked, and then at the end of the season, they have semifinals and finals.
Yeah.
And so these celebrities, Udonis Haslam, the guys from Lifestyle Miami, a couple people come in and they pay a fee for a team.
Yeah.
You don't really own the team.
Yeah. It's
you come
marketing.
in and you help the organization.
Just to say,
Throw
I own
in the money in, and then they use that for the operations, and you're the team owner.
Yeah.
And you have a GM, and they have a draft, and it's a good system.
Yeah.
It's nice, and I'll tell you what, it's not very different than what I had looked at years ago, and would still like to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what they're doing, and again, the blueprint is already made.
Yeah.
So the only thing is, if it's a foot race, they're a couple of miles ahead of us because they're already on these platforms. They're already they've already done the market research. They are already in different states.
Yeah.
So they're ahead of me and my team. If we were to build Major League Highlight, we're literally building it from the ground up.
Got it. Team USA. Didn't you mention something earlier to me about Team USA?
Yeah. So JJ had mentioned he played back in 1975, 76 for Team USA.
Wow.
So the United States years ago, when we had all these small courts and academies and kids playing, there was a lot of opportunity to be part of the international federation.
Yeah.
So there's an international federation. Then there's the countries that play: Spain, France, Mexico, Cuba, Philippines, and USA. We've had some issues over the years because the U.S. Federation is focused on other modalities of the sport: pala, mano, sare. It's different modalities that are very similar to highlight, but they're not highlight. So as the business in the United States started dropping, and we taught kids and younger players less and less, the U.S. highlight team started falling off.
Got it.
So we're really trying to incorporate that as part of our effort to grow the sport again. So Team USA, there's a tournament that is scheduled for March 3rd, March 2nd through the 9th of 2025 in Mexico City.
Cool.
So we've committed to putting a team together. We are, we're doing fundraising and we're trying to get, the ball rolling because again, the U.S. Federation is not, I don't want to say that they're not supportive, but they haven't had a highlight team for probably 10 years. I took a highlight team again to Mexico City in 2011. And we pretty much had to raise all the funds for, the flights, the meals. They put us up. So, but we still had an expense of $4,000 or $5,000 that we had to come up with. So we're in the same place now, but maybe in a little bit better situation because now there's guys that can compete in these. It's like I took 4 kids. I just said, hey, you want to go? You want to go? You want to go? You want to go? Let's go. We had a great time. It was a great experience for them. 3 out of the 4 guys that actually went on to turn pro. Good. So it was a great experience, but for me at that time, it was kind of one and done because they didn't feel the headache that I felt of having to,
organize, raise money.
It was a lot.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And years ago when JJ played and a couple of my friends played, my friend Ramon went to France in 1981 and represented. I mean, there was a much better infrastructure in what is the highlight teams. There was actually qualifiers to go to the tournament. So trying to bring that back, but it's all under that umbrella of trying to find a home, find a facility to teach kids, find a place, where we can have competitions, have, qualifiers and, again, grassroots starting from zero.
Got it. You have an upcoming meet coming up at Dania, right?
Yes. We're currently playing
your season, right
our
now.
3rd season.
Okay.
We again, if you'll allow me, I'm going to go back a couple years to get to where we are now. So the law that we spoke about earlier about if you have slot machines, you are obligated to play a certain amount of games. And, in 2021, the Indians get everything that they want, and rightfully so. I don't have anything against the Seminoles. Quite the contrary. They're doing a great job with everything they do. But, they like exclusivity. And they don't want anybody to have blackjack, and they don't want anybody to have anything else more than they have. So, as mentioned earlier, the business of Jai Alai was losing probably just over $1 million a year for these companies. And it wasn't just here. It was Miami. It was Calder Jai Alai. It was some of the horse tracks. So, they all got together and they said, well, you got to give us something. You're giving the Indians everything. Right. I mean, give us something. So I don't know if it was the Indians or the state or even them lobbying that said, well, how about if we lift the requirement of playing? And you don't have to play Jai Alai, you don't have to run dogs, you don't have to run trotters, you don't have to run horses, unless you want to. You could if you want to, but you don't have to. You're not obligated. So now everybody's starting to drop off. It's like, if I stop playing Jai Alai, I save just over $1 million a year, goes to the bottom line. Not a bad idea, And again, the business side of it, my job for the first 5 years was managing the players, recruiting the players, contracts for the players. And then in 2018, they brought me into the probably the worst part of my job, the business side. Like they put the spreadsheet in front of me. They said, here you go, fix it. And I just slid it back to them and said, I can't fix it. You can't fix it. We play an archaic system of, pari-mutuels. There's no money there. I mean, people are betting, don't get me wrong, but it's never going to cover the expenses. So in 2021, when that law passed that we could decouple, we sat in the boardroom and we sat there for, 4 or 5 sessions. Like, we're not going to decouple, but what if we did? What would you do if we did? I love the guys that I was playing with. I had some young guys that had, a 20-year career in front of them. And then I had some guys that probably had already played 15 years. So there was a mix of what I had then. And I just basically said, if you're serious about doing something, let's do a 2-month season. I'm going to go out and get AAA players. I'm not going to get no prima donnas, no superstars. No one's going to extort me for a contract. I'm going to go out and find kids that want to come to the U.S. for 2 months in South Florida, go to the beach, go to Las Olas Boulevard, and play Jai Alai. And we'll pay them as much as we could. And we ran some numbers, and we came up with this 2-month concept. It exceeded all of our expectations,
Great.
especially mine, because I've rarely get a victory in the business side. So I had a victory. We still didn't make money, but we didn't lose a lot. We lost $20,000.
Yeah, okay.
Where the owner said, that's it?
That's
Let's
it.
do it
Let's
again.
do it again.
Let's go to 3 months.
Good.
So we went to 3 months, and this is the third year of that. And it's just a young group of kids. They're all learning, but they're good. And they're very competitive at their level. It's kind of like if you go see a good college baseball game or a good, AAA game.
Equal,
It's like they're not, okay, so they're not, superstars, but they will be
seeing
someday.
good quality, right?
However, they're really good.
They
Right.
are.
These
They're
kids
really, they are really good, and they're good kids, and they are clean slate. Like they come in and I sit them down and I say, hey, this is how you behave. This is how you do this.
Yeah.
This is when you practice. This is what you practice. And they're absorbing all this.
No going to the
information.
mutiny.
Yeah, don't go to the mutiny's closed. So you're gonna pass by and go, oh look, that's where it used to be. So it's very fulfilling in the sense of like I've gone from like a manager to more like a mentor coach type scenario.
Yeah.
Good group of guys. So we do this 3-month concept. We call it the Dania Beach Invitational. It's basically they play the month of December, and they, by win, place, and show, they gather points, 5, 3, and 1.
Yeah.
So at the end of the month of December, we have 8 teams in a bracket. 3 teams are eliminated. 8 teams go into the bracket, seeded 1 through 8. And then every Friday night, the teams pair up and they play. 1 is eliminated, 1 moves on. So now this Friday we're playing our last
elimination process.
The elimination. Then we go into the semi-rounds, and then we go into the finals, which is February 14th. And then we've incorporated this season.
St. Valentine's Day. What a day to have. Wow.
Yeah. It's going to be empty that day, but it'll be fun. It'll still be fun. Good thing is you can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
We've incorporated the company. There's a company in Spain right now that's really killing it. They're like they've brought the sport back from zero to hero. Like they're doing great things. They got backing from the government, backing from the biggest production company and the biggest TV chain over there. They have money coming their way. They're selling out. They're doing really good. So they approached me and they want their league to go international.
Yeah.
So they want to do a stop in Dania. And it's a 3-day tournament. So that's the Biscayne Cup, which we're calling it that because the first Jai Alai fronton
built in Biscayne.
It was called Biscayne Jai Alai
really?
100
Miami
years
Jai Alai.
ago.
It was actually called Biscayne Jai Alai.
Yeah.
And then they changed it to Miami.
So that is going to be the winner of our tournament that wins all his matches and gets first place will join 3 other teams that are going to come from Spain. And these are like the elite. These are the top players in the game right now. They're coming in. So it'll be 4 teams that'll play 3 matches, 2 semifinal matches, and the final match to win the Biscayne Cup.
That's awesome, man. You know what I was thinking? You guys need your Drive to Survive F1 series like Netflix to really take it off, right?
This game used to be on Wide World of Sports.
Yeah.
Every Sunday.
Isn't that crazy?
And they play partidos that they recorded. I believe it was Mexico or Tijuana Jai Alai, I think. I don't know if
maybe
it was
I'm
TJ.
not sure.
It was a long front. It was a long Jai Alai court, bigger than Miami.
Yeah.
And they would play every Sunday there, and I got to see Anchia. You remember Anchia?
Of course, yeah.
Anchia would play on Sundays, and I was probably about 6, 7, somewhere around there. And my dad used to say, "Hey, champ, come and watch. We got Anchia on TV," because Anchia was the
ball maker.
He was the ball maker at Orbea's Jai Alai.
Wow.
So
he used to pick me up on Saturday mornings when I was like 11 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Like he would open up the place.
Yeah.
And he would let me go out on the big court. I didn't even know how to play good yet.
Yeah.
But I would go out there by myself and throw the ball. I would go out there with his son Ralphie.
Wow.
That's when I really fell in love with the sport, when I saw that it was televised as a young chap,
Can you watch it? Where can you watch it?
No, you can't watch it on, it's not like Wide World of Sports anymore.
No, but like
that.
YouTube channel.
Well, we broadcast all our matches on YouTube.
Okay.
And, of course you can go there live, but you can watch it on YouTube and you can go on demand. Like if you can watch last week's or last night's games, you go to our channel and you can watch all the matches there.
How crazy it is that one of the most fastest ball games in the world is not in the Olympics. Why?
Absolutely.
Why aren't we known?
I could answer that.
Go, let's do it.
This is what's always bothered me, and now we're talking international highlight. We have all these frontiers. You have the Basque region, you have Spain, you have France, you have Mexico, you have Philippines,
Yeah.
Jakarta. Indonesia. I mean, they're playing highlight in all these places. If you have an Olympic event for highlight,
It'll pick up.
highlight will pick up everywhere.
Yeah.
As I was told, you have
Even
to
Greenland.
the Olympic Committee requires that a certain amount of countries play the sport. I think it's 28 countries have to play the sport. So I think that's don't quote me on that, but I know it's a number that we will not reach for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy.
But talking about what we were talking about courts in Spain and France, like what I want to do here with Major League Jai Alai and create, cities and teams. I was invited to come to Madrid. Madrid has 150 courts. You could come here and say, "Hey, I want to play at these 4 courts," and you could do what you want there.
Yeah.
I want to do it in USA though. I don't.
Well, hopefully we can help you do it. Where can people find out more about Highlight? Where can we watch Highlight? Please give us all the info.
Well, watching right now, it's a short season. It's going to end at the end of February.
Okay.
So you could always watch our games on YouTube. You could always reach out to me.
Yeah.
Be Bueno at ushighlight.com.
What a cool name.
Send me an email if you want to help out. We're also, we have a webpage now, ushighlight.com.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to go check it out, we're selling some of the jackets.
I love the gear.
And,
Thanks for
and
giving
jerseys.
me.
I
love it, man.
We're just out there trying to, see if we could, again, the money part is very important because without money, you can't do anything. But, in 2006 and 2007, when I was out pounding the pavement, I got just as much from the influence and the people. Like I mentioned, and I'll just mention it briefly, here in the city of Doral, we got really, really close to getting a highlight court built. The only problem with that was the whole project got scrubbed. Like they were going to, develop that part.
Yeah.
It was like a $110 million project. And there was a whole section where they had racket courts and tennis courts. And I went in and I met the mayor. And the mayor at that time, super nice guy, big sports fan.
Yeah.
Like he just like supported me. The guy that made that happen was a Florida state representative that came into the meeting and told him, I'll help you with funding and all of that. They talked about how we're going to do it financially, but just the conversation, and I got the enjoyment out of the interest that was piqued by this guy. Like he would call me and like, who the mayor is calling you. Who gets calls from the mayor, right? And I thought it was like so cool that like, man, this is really going to happen. And I'll never forget, he called me one day and he says, hey, my parks guy is going to call you, but he's got some bad news. And I was like, no, I don't want bad news. And the Parks and Recreation guy called me and says, hey, they're scrubbing the project. We'll still keep it on the ballot and see if we can do it next year. But 15 years has gone by and they just finished the park now, but.
All right, Benny, you were on an episode of Jackass.
Yep.
Tell me about it.
Well, it was a long time. I don't remember what year it was, but it was funny because I know we still had rotary phones at home. It wasn't a cell phone, but my phone rings one day. It's like 7 a.m, and this guy gets on the line and says, "Hey, I'm Johnny Knoxville," and I'm like, "Who?" Johnny Knoxville. I was like, okay, and he goes, "I do this show on MTV, and I want you to throw highlight balls at me." And I said, "Are you sure about that?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, yeah. I do stunts and I want you to throw highlight balls at me. I go, all right, let's set it up, whatever. So we set it up. We get the date. It was through the PR guy at Miami Jai Alai. And we come out in the morning and him and Steve-O were there. Steve-O, like nobody knew who Steve was. Some people knew Johnny Knoxville, but Steve-O was like unknown at that time.
He became famous quick.
And they sit down in the cage, the player's cage, like the dugout, and they're saying like, he was showing me bruises that he got hit with a billiard ball from 4 stories. They dropped it on him, whatever. So I said, but you sure you want to get hit by a highlight ball? I mean, look at the highlight ball. I showed him a ball. He goes, yeah, this is nothing. So a couple guys go out there and start warming up and they start throwing the ball around and whatever. And he's like, oh shit.
I don't think I want to.
So like, we need to rethink this a little bit. So they said, let's do fruit. And I said, well, what kind of fruit? He's like, well, we'll do apples and oranges and limes or lemons, whatever. So the guy runs across the street, gets a whole bunch of fruit, comes back. And so, the ball comes out nice and smooth, but fruit don't.
Right.
So we're like, okay. So how hard can you throw this? And I said, I don't know, maybe 90, 100 miles per hour, whatever. So at first they got forward and they had like a basket. They put a basket on their hand. They had it covering their face. And he had a cup on or whatever, but he wanted to get hit. So we had no precision because the oranges are not
It's hard to
sliding
control.
out. You
Yeah,
know what I
right,
mean?
right,
They're
right,
too
right.
big.
Yeah.
So we're missing, but we're throwing the ball hard, but we're not hitting them.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Oh, okay, hold on. He got scared." So they said, "We're gonna turn around and you try to hit us in the butt." And I was like, "Okay." So now, we've already thrown like maybe 6 or 8 each.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to get
You're
the
throwing
hang
about
of it.
60, 80 miles an hour, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Because
it's
I was
probably.
watching him, and I see Benny flinging this,
Yeah.
and I'm going.
But I
"Oh,
was throwing
this
soft.
is
I
not
felt
gonna
bad.
end
I
well."
was like, I
yeah.
didn't want to
I
hurt.
heard
But
him.
this guy, Adam, my friend, he was like, "No, man, they're gonna get hit.
Adam's
They want to
crazy.
get."
He's trying to
And
fling
so
it.
so we did the episode. I hit Johnny Knoxville. This is my friend Adam hit Steve-O twice. Hit him once in the leg, left a huge bruise, and he actually cracked a rib.
Yeah.
He hit
No
him in the
way.
back and cracked a rib. Fernandez was the one that threw that one.
Yeah.
So they got hit a couple times. They filmed it and it went out. And even still now, like sometimes when it's on, in syndication or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah, check
a
it out.
friend of mine will call me, "Bro, you're on MTV." Like, yeah, I've seen it before.
I spoke to one of the guys that knew him, and he told me, he says the hematoma on his leg was huge.
Yeah,
Really?
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you see, I have some home video of it, but if
And
you
I think
see,
someone took a picture of it, and when he showed, I go, "Oh shit!"
yeah, yeah.
And memory pain. 'Cause
Those guys,
I
man.
got hit by a guy in Connecticut by the name of Sebastian.
Uh-huh.
Sebastian used to throw the daylights out of the ball.
Yeah.
Big bass guy, and for some reason he opened up like he never opened up before. The sidewall's there, and he catch on the sidewall, and he opened up, and I was like about a pace and a half because you want to be close to your
Yeah,
partner to see where he's going to throw. And this son of a gun threw sideways, and he hit me right on this leg over here, and I just stood still. And we had a trainer named Tom Altieri.
Yeah, the bomb, Tom the bomb.
Tom the bomb. And I stood there, and the guy says, "Come on, let's go and put ice on it." I said, "Bro, I don't want to take a step." I didn't feel anything right then and there. It was just boom.
Boom.
And I'm like, "Oh, shit, I know I don't feel anything." I said, "This is weird." So the first step I took, I went, "Oh," that's when it hit me. When I went back there the next day, my leg blew up like that.
Yeah.
I had a hematoma on there for like a week, 2 weeks. I
No.
couldn't believe it. And I
That-
put ice on it for the first 72 hours. Put ice,
Ice,
20
yeah.
minutes on, 5 off, 20 on, until it went down because I wanted to play the next day.
Oh,
you
my
know?
God.
Oh, no, I went through hell.
And you
That's
played?
Yeah.
That's
I
what
went out
happened
there
my
and played,
career.
and it
Was,
hurt like
I
hell.
got hit with the ball in January of 2005. A guy, caught the ball in the middle of the court. I thought he was going to throw it lower, and I came up and he threw it a little bit higher, and it hit the front wall, side wall, and then it hit me right in the knee.
No.
And it's just a bad spot. That was the beginning of the end. That was actually my last year. And I would go to the doctor and I'm like, "Hey man, fix this." He's
Yeah.
like, "There's nothing wrong with you. You got a contusion."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, what?"
Bone bruises.
It still
are the
hurts right
worst.
now.
Really?
I go like this. It hurts.
And what is it? I mean, you
It's just
tear
a
your
bone
knee?
contusion.
No.
It hit me like right on the
Yeah.
bone. It's just a bruise.
There's nothing worse
But
than
it's a bad bruise.
It's a bad bruise.
I'd rather
20-year
have
bruise.
a regular bruise than a bone bruise, Bone bruises are the worst.
The bone.
You have any broken bones playing?
Never, no.
Oh,
Thank
my
God.
God.
And I got
You've
hit.
broken a
If I showed you my
I got
shins,
hit in the
if I showed you my two
I
shins,
got hit in the
I got hit
foot.
with the ball so many times.
Shoot, I got hit in the foot 2 times. I broke Benjamin threw a rebote here. A Frenchman hit me in the foot,
Yeah.
broke my toe. That's 2. I got hit in the elbow by Montilla. I got hit in the jaw by a Frenchman, Augustine. He threw a sideways reverse, hit me in the jaw, and you can still hear it cracking.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it hit me.
I
in
hit
the jaw.
I hit a couple guys. It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It was their fault.
I was eating from a straw for
They were
6
out of
weeks.
position, but
Yeah, I was eating from a straw for 6
it's
weeks.
not fun.
and-
Man.
Wow.
It's not fun. That
And-
that ball is hard.
That ball is hard,
And I
yeah,
seen
man.
a couple of guys get hit, but in bad places. Oh, Billy
Yeah.
got hit in the forehead.
Cracked his-
That wasn't a good
cracked
one.
his-
Anybody get hit in the nuts?
A friend of mine. Oh yeah, I
Well,
seen Assis.
yeah.
Assis got hit. Oh my God.
Well, I was gonna say, you know how when you're in Little League Baseball and they tell you get in front of the
Yeah,
ball,
yeah,
get in
yeah,
front of it.
yeah.
No, that's the opposite.
The
in
opposite.
highlight. You're like a
Highlight.
torero,
Yeah.
like a bullfighter.
Yeah.
Like, hey, on the side.
Yeah, that was something. Assis got hit there, and then when they took his pants down, his
Really?
his
Yeah.
joint
It was the size of
swelled
one
up.
of those balls.
Well, he had a big
Bad.
hematoma on there right away.
Oh.
So, and I saw that and I said, "Look, it matches your face, red, So you motherfucker, but and Assis was a big guy.
Yeah.
I think at that time I weighed.
Doesn't matter how big you are, you get hit in the
175
nuts, you're
Yeah,
screwed.
you go
but he was
down.
down and out. I mean, actually, he ran off the court. When he pulled his pants, I thought he got hit in the leg, but he said, "No, man, I don't get a little huevo." And I said, "Oh my God!" And when he pulled it, I said, "Oh Jesus, you poor guy,"
Poor guy.
But yeah, I seen a couple of guys get hit pretty bad there. I saw Mazza. I saw Mazza get hit.
Yeah.
I seen another player get hit in the helmet. Mazza,
That was in Fort Pierce.
no, that was Miami. I believe.
Miami?
Did he get hit?
I don't know.
I don't even
I know
remember where that was.
He sued the company. That's
Yeah.
where a whole bunch of drama started for the players
Yeah.
because
Sued
he
the
got hit with the
helmet
ball. He
company?
sued the company.
He sued the
And-
helmet company and World Highlight.
Yeah.
I think he walked out with almost $1 million, 700 something grand.
Wow, okay.
Back at that day, back in that time, it was
I
a
don't
lot
care.
Of money,
I don't want to get hit by the ball.
No,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
care
yeah.
how much you pay
Keep your
me.
million, dude.
No, that
Keep your
ball hurts
million.
too much, bro.
So you were also on Miami Vice, right?
Yes, I was.
And what were you in a scene with Don Johnson? What happened?
Yeah. I mean, I got a couple of good stories about that one. It was season 3, episode 3. It's called Kill Shot. It was about a highlight player that had a brother that was a DEA agent. So he had a drug and alcohol problem, and he liked prostitutes. So it was the 80s, whatever. So
Typical highlight guy.
Yeah, typical highlight guy. So he goes out with this prostitute one night, and she's antagonizing him, and he beats her up a little bit, and then he gets scared, and she plays like she's dead, and she leaves.
Yeah.
But she was alive, and so the kingpin that set it all up actually killed her and threw her in the canal, and so she had the video of it all. So they were going to use that video to frame the brother to get some DEA codes.
Yeah.
So that's the premise of the thing. But they filmed a lot of the scenes at Highlight.
Right.
So, we come in one day, and I was playing a game, and they said, hey, somebody wants to talk to you in the back room or whatever. So I went in there. There's like 6 people. I didn't know any of them. And there's a lady sitting at the end of the thing, and she says, what's your name? And asked me a couple questions. And she goes, okay, you're in. Next. And I was like, okay. I went out, and I went back on the court, and I played. And the next day they told me, hey, they picked you to be on this episode of, that was a casting crew, and they picked you for the episode. Like, all right. So like 3 or 4 days later, I get a script. I have a speaking part. I was like, okay. And me and 2 other guys had speaking parts. Ara had a speaking part, and Plaza had a speaking part.
Yeah.
And then, so like a month or so later, they call us in or whatever. And so they say, okay, the first scene, we're setting up cameras. You're going to throw on the court or whatever. So we go. It's like 7 a.m.
Yeah.
We're warming up or whatever. And then I get a little tired. It's taking too long to set up the camera. So I go into the player's cage, and I sit down. All of a sudden, the door opens up, and it's Don Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks away, hey, pal, what's up? Hey, you're a highlight player. Starts asking me all these questions. And I was like, yeah, and I started asking him about, because he was into boat racing at that time. And, and I asked him about the Ferrari. That thing's a piece of crap. And like he was just very rough, but very nice.
Yeah.
And so we do the first scene. And then afterwards, he comes up to me and he goes, hey, we're blowing up a boat across the street tonight if you want to come out and check it out. It's going to be like right at midnight. And we played till about 11:30.
Yeah.
So we finished playing. We all showered quickly, and we went over there. And so we're standing around, and again, the firefighters and everybody there setting up the scene and whatever. And Don Johnson is standing there, and he sees me, and he comes rushing over, and he goes, hey, what's up, man? Glad you could make it. He goes, do you like coconut popsicles? And I was like, I never had one. He goes, oh, come with me. And we go into his trailer. He's got like this little Airstream trailer there. We go in there. It was like the most awkward thing.
Who knew Don Johnson like
he goes, sit down, have it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. I sit down. I'm thinking like, wow, this is cool, but scary. He hands me a coconut popsicle. It's like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. We talked for a few minutes, and and then boom, 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 they knocked on the door. Mr. Johnson, your scene's right. And then he got up and he went,
I don't think I would have went in there.
I know. I was like, oh, this is weird. This guy's
Hey, sit on this couch, buddy.
Stranger danger.
Yeah.
And then the other one was, in the very last scene, they were getting ready to wrap everything up, and he says to me, hey, we're having this wrap party tomorrow when we finish everything at the Fountain Blue.
Yeah.
And, we'd love for you to come out, bring a couple of the friends. Yeah. We got friendly with like the crew and everybody. So I was like, oh, yeah. So it was funny that night. We come into play, and Alfredo Garcia, our player manager, he put this big thing on the board, said players are prohibited from going to the closing party. It was the 80s.
Yeah.
It was the 80s. He was like, you're prohibited to go, and I don't want anybody going. So,
and that's not in our contract. He had no right to say that.
Yeah, FM. Yeah.
Well, they were very cautious with everything that we did. They kept an eye on us.
I said, listen, it's not in my contract. I can go wherever I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy so. Totally random.
Pay me a few $100,000, then I'll listen.
Yeah, take care of my benefits and all stuff. It's the only Miami Vice episode I've ever watched. Why? Well, my last name is Arriola. It's a unique last name.
Tico Arriola.
So
was the player was the highlight.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Because he's Basque, but I'm Cuban, but way back somewhere in my family was Basque. Anyways, but in the episode, the DEA agent that you talk about, that was his brother, the character's name is Frank
Frank
Arriola.
Arriola.
That's my brother's name.
Oh,
so
no
that's the
way.
only episode of Miami Vice that I've ever watched.
Well,
Wow,
funny
no
funny
kidding.
story. Frank Arriola, I met him and Fernando Allende and the guys that were in it that were like co-starring.
Yeah.
And one day I was at this bar, Metro 107, an old rock bar down in Kendall, and all of a sudden I get tapped on the shoulder and I look and it's
No kidding.
the guy that
Carlos,
played
his name's
Frank
Carlos.
Arriola.
Yeah,
Carlos.
Carlos Sestero. And
No
I look
kidding.
and I go, "What are you doing here?" And he was lit like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
He's
He was partying like
"It's
in the
great to
episode."
see you, buddy. Let's go. Where we going?" It's like, I ain't going. I'm going home. That's where I'm going. I was warned about you guys.
I was prohibited
Yeah,
from going out with
Why
you.
did you
it's
go
still
over
up on the
there?
board.
But before you close us out,
Let's do it.
February,
Yes.
if you want to see exciting highlight, the end is always the best.
Really.
So the end of this tournament, you're going to have these boys playing. They're going to come out with knives in their mouths, and they're going to be killing for
Really?
a point. It's going to be exciting, and it is every year. Every time he presents this this final, of the tournaments, the kids they just go out there for blood, and it's going to be exciting. I'm definitely going to be there.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
And I'm going to take a bunch of friends because I want them to see the best.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and the last few nights, they're going to give it their all.
Awesome, man.
I'll even take you in the back so you can meet some of them.
I love
They're
it.
good
I love
kids.
it. I
Man.
love
They're
it.
good
I
kids.
love it,
They're
man.
all right.
They're good kids.
I appreciate it. JJ Benny, thanks. Continued success.
Thank you.
Folks, go check out Highlight. It is the fastest sport, right?
Fastest
on
ball
Earth.
game in the world.
These two gentlemen have been so kind to join us today. Guys, wish you the best, and I'll see you at Highlight.
Thanks for having us, man.